Guys, it's Caleb. We're back again with some more Red Knot. My mother has a bunch of Goosebump books, so I figured I'd read some of them. In case you don't remember what Goosebumps was, it used to be, it might still be produced today, but I don't believe so, a children's books series, horror, mystery, things like that. They were by R.L. Stine. Again, I don't know if these books are still being produced today, but they got popular enough that they had their own TV show when Saturday morning cartoons used to be a thing. They were okay. This particular book is Welcome to Camp Nightmare. Cover looks pretty spooky, I guess. Sunset in some creepy woods with some creepy trees with a tent. Creepy crawly, I don't know, is that supposed to be a dragon or something? Anyway, it's pulling the netting off the front of the tent. And the little caption on here is, "It's the little camp of horrors." Oh, you're so cute with your reference. Also, something else I want to say about this book is the lettering for the title. It's got little bumps on it, like it sticks out and it has little bumps on it. That's cool. On the back of the book, a little thing that same as the cover. Those scary stories about camp are all coming true. The food isn't great, the counselors are a little strange, and the camp director, Uncle Al, seems sort of demented. Okay, so Billy can handle all that. But then his fellow campers start to disappear. What's going on? Why won't his parents answer his letters? What's lurking out there in the dark? Camp Night Moon? Camp Night Moon. Okay. Is turning into Camp Nightmare for real, and Billy might be next. Reader beware, you're in for a scare. Also available from R.L. Stine, The Ghost Next Door. I don't know if I have that one. I have several of my mother's Goosebumps, so we shall be reading 3 chapters of each of these as we go. Some recommended books, the intro page, published by Scholastic. Here we go. I stared out the dusty window as the camp bus bounced over the narrow, winding road. I could see sloping red hills in the distance beneath a bright yellow sky. Stumpy white trees lined the road like fence posts. We were way out in the wilderness. We hadn't passed a house or a farm for nearly an hour. The bus seats were made of hard blue plastic. When the bus hit a bump, we all bounced up off our seats. Everyone laughed and shouted. The driver kept growling at us, yelling for us to pipe down. There were 22 kids going to camp on the bus. I was sitting in the back row on the aisle, so I could count them all. There were 18 boys and only 4 girls. I guessed that the boys were all going to Camp Night Moon, which is where I was going. The girls were going to a girls' camp nearby. The girls sat together in the front rows, and talked quietly to each other. Every once in a while, they'd glance back quickly to check out the boys. The boys were a lot louder than the girls, cracking jokes, laughing, making funny noises, shouting out dumb things. It was a long bus ride, but we were having a good time. The boy next to me was named Mike. He had the window seat. Mike looked a little like a bulldog. He was kind of chubby, with a round face and pudgy arms and legs. He had short, spiky black hair, which he scratched a lot. He was wearing baggy brown shorts and a sleeveless green t-shirt. We had been sitting together the whole trip, but Mike didn't say much. I figured he was shy or maybe very nervous. He told me this was his first time at a sleepaway camp. It was my first time too, and I have to admit that as the bus took me farther and farther from my home, I was already starting to miss my mom and dad just a little. I'm 12, but I've never really stayed away from home before. Even though the long bus ride was fun, I had this sad kind of feeling, and I think Mike was feeling the same way. He pressed his chubby face against the window glass and stared out at the red hills rolling by in the distance. "Are you okay, Mike?" I asked. "Yeah, sure, Billy," he replied quickly without turning around. I thought about my mom and dad, back at the bus station. They had seemed so serious, I guess they were nervous too, about me going off to camp for the first time. We'll read every day, Dad said. Do your best, Mom said, hugging me harder than usual. What a weird thing to say. Why didn't she say, have a good time? Why did she say, do your best? As you can tell, I'm a bit of a worrier. The only other boys I'd met so far were the two in the seat in front of us. One was named Colin. He had brown hair down to his collar, and he wore silver sunglasses so you couldn't see his eyes. He acted kind of tough, and he wore a red bandana on his forehead. He kept tying and untying the bandana. Sitting next to him in the seat of the aisle was a big, loud kid named Jay. Jay talked a lot about sports and kept bragging about what a good athlete he was. He liked showing off his big, muscular arms, especially when one of the girls turned around to check us out. Jay teased Colin a lot and kept wrestling with him, gripping Colin's head in a headlock and messing up Colin's bandana. You know, just kidding around. Well, so far I don't want to punch the author in the face. Sounds relatively like I remember what it's like being a kid, and this kind of shit that happened when I was a kid. Except I attach a horror story to it so that it's kind of scary. Jay had wild, bushy red hair that looked as if it had never been brushed. He had big blue eyes. He never stopped grinning and horsing around. He spent the whole trip telling gross jokes and shouting things at the girls. Hey, what's your name? Jay called to a blonde-haired girl who sat in the front by the window. She ignored him for a long time, but the fourth time Jay called out his question, she turned around, her green eyes flashing. Dawn, she replied. Then she pointed to the red-haired girl next to her, and that's my friend Dory. Hey, that's amazing. My name is Dawn, too, Jay joked. A lot of the guys laughed, but Dawn didn't crack a smile. Nice to meet you, Dawn, she called back to him. Then she turned back to the front. The bus bounced over a hole in the road, and we all bounced with it. Hey, look, Billy, Mike said suddenly, pointing out the window. Mike hadn't said anything for a long time. I leaned toward the window, trying to see what he was pointing at. I think I saw a prairie cat, he said, still staring hard. Huh? Really? I saw a clump of low white trees and a lot of jagged red rocks, but I couldn't see any prairie cats. You mean prairie dogs? I guess prairie dogs. That seems weird to call them prairie cats. It went behind those rocks, Mike said, still pointing. Then he turned toward me. Have you seen any towns or anything? I shook my head. Just desert. But isn't the camp supposed to be near a town? Mike looked worried. I don't think so, I told him. My dad told me that Camp Night Moon is past the desert, way into the woods. Way out in the woods. Mike thought about this for a while, frowning. Well, what if we want to call home or something, he asked. They probably have phones at the camp, I told him. I glanced up in time to see Jay toss something toward the girls in the front. It looked like a green ball. It hit Dawn in the back of the head and stuck in her blonde hair. Hey! Dawn cried out angrily. She pulled the sticky green ball from her hair. What is this? She turned and glared at Jay. Jay giggled his high-pitched giggle. Okay. I don't know. I found it stuck under the seat, he called to her. I would call bullshit on that. Dawn scowled at him and heaved the green ball back. It missed Jay and hit the rear window, where it stuck with a loud plop. Everyone laughed. Dawn and her friend Dory made faces at Jay. Colin fiddled with his red bandana. Jay, turning the page, slumped down low and raised his knees against the seat in front of him. A few rows ahead of me, two grinning boys were singing a song we all knew, but with really gross words replacing the original words. So they were swearing and making bad jokes. Yeah, I've been around those kinds of people. A few other kids began to sing along. Suddenly, without warning, the bus squealed to a stop, the tires skidding loudly over the road. We all cried out in surprise. I bounced off my seat, and my chest hit the seat in front of me. Ugh, that hurt. Oh shit, Sherlock. As I slid back in the seat, my heart still pounding, the bus driver stood up and turned to us, leaning heavily into the aisle. Oh, several loud gasps filled the small bus as we saw the driver's face. His head was enormous and pink, topped with a mop of wild, bright blue hair that stood straight up. He had long, pointed ears. His huge red eyeballs bulged out from their dark sockets, bouncing in front of his snout-like nose. Sharp white fangs drooped from his gaping mouth. A green liquid oozed over his heavy black lips. As we goggled in silent horror, the driver tilted back his monstrous head and uttered an animal roar. Well, that was sudden. That didn't take long, did it? The driver roared so loud the bus windows rattled. Several kids shrieked in fright. Mike and I both ducked down low, hiding behind the seat in front of us. He's turned into a monster, Mike whispered, his eyes wide with fear. Then we heard laughter at the front of the bus. I raised myself up in time to see the bus driver reach one hand up to his bright blue hair. He tugged, and his face slid right off. Oh, several kids shrieked in horror, but we quickly realized that the face dangling from the driver's hands was a mask. He had been wearing a rubber monster mask. His real face was perfectly normal, I saw with relief. You didn't realize that was a mask. You didn't realize. Really? How do you miss that? A mask looks like a mask. It doesn't look like somebody's face. He laughed, shaking his head, enjoying his joke. This fools 'em every time, he declared, holding up the ugly mask. A few kids laughed along with him, but most of us were too surprised and confused to think it was funny. Suddenly his expression changed. Everybody out, he ordered gruffly. He pulled a lever and the door slid open with a whoosh. Where are we? Someone called out. But the driver ignored the question. He tossed the mask onto the driver's seat. Then, lowering his head so he wouldn't bump the roof, he quickly made his way out the door. I leaned across Mike and stared out the window, but I couldn't see much, just mile after mile of flat, yellow ground, broken occasionally by clumps of red rock. It looked like a desert. Why aren't we getting out here? Mike asked, turning to me. I could see he was really worried. Maybe this is the camp, I joked. Mike didn't think that was funny. You know, we're pointlessly worrying about stuff for no reason because nothing horrible's happened yet. With the exception of the driver kind of being a dick, nothing bad has happened yet. And of course Jay's a dick too. We were all confused as we pushed and shoved our way off the bus, and Mike and I were the last ones off since we were sitting in the back. As I stepped onto the hard ground, I shielded my eyes against the bright sunlight high in the afternoon sky. We were in a flat, open area. The bus was parked beside a concrete platform about the size of a tennis court. It must be some kind of bus station or something, I told Mike. You know, a drop-off point. He had his hands shoved into the pockets of his shorts. He kicked at the dirt, but didn't say anything. On the other side of the platform, Jay was in a shoving match with a boy I hadn't met yet. Colin was leaning against the side of the bus, being cool. The 4 girls were standing in a circle near the front of the platform, talking quietly about something. I watched the driver walk over to the side of the bus and pull open the luggage compartment. He began pulling out bags and camp trunks and carrying them to the concrete platform. A couple of guys had sat down on the edge of the platform to watch the driver work. On the other side of the platform, Jay and some other guys were having a contest, tossing little red pebbles as far as they could. Mike, his hands still buried in his pockets, stepped up behind the sweating bus driver. Hey, where are we? Why are we stopping here? Mike asked him nervously. The driver slid a heavy black trunk from the back of the luggage compartment. He completely ignored Mike's questions. Mike asked them again, and again the driver pretended Mike wasn't there. That's a shitty bus driver. I mean, granted, this is a mystery series, but if I was these kids, I'd be like, fuck this, I'm going home. Of course, this was probably back when you didn't have cell phones, so it's not like you could call your parents. Mike made his way to where I was turn page. Standing, walking slowly, dragging his shoes across the hard ground. He looked really worried. I was confused, but I wasn't worried. I mean, the bus driver was calmly going about his business, unloading the bus. He knew what he was doing. Why won't he answer me? Why won't he tell us anything? Mike demanded. I felt bad that Mike was so nervous, but I didn't want to hear any more of his questions. You're kind of a dick, 'cause he has some pretty authentic questions. He was starting to make me nervous, too. As you probably should be, because there is nothing around you, and the bus driver is being a douche. I wandered away from him, making my way along the other side of the platform to where the 4 girls were standing. Across the platform, Jay and his buddies were still having their stone-throwing contest. Dawn smiled at me as I came closer. Then she glanced quickly away. She's really pretty, I thought. Her blonde hair gleamed in the bright sunlight. Are you from Center City? Her friend Dory asked, squinting at me. Her freckled face twisted against the sun. No, I told her. I'm from Midlands. It's north of Center City, near Outreach Bay. I know where Midland is, Dory snapped snootedly. The other 3 girls laughed. I could feel myself blushing. Why? She's an asshole. You tell her she can take a stick and shove it up her butt. What's your name? Dawn asked, staring at me with her green eyes. Billy, I told her. My bird's name is Billy, she exclaimed, and the girls all laughed again. Where are you girls going? I asked quickly, eager to change the subject. I mean, what camp? Camp Night Moon. There's one for boys and one for girls, Dory answered. This is an all-camp Night Moon bus. Is your camp near ours? I asked. I didn't even know there was a Camp Night Moon for girls. Dory shrugged. We don't know, Dawn replied. This is our first year. All of us, Dory added. Me too. I told them. I wonder why we stopped here. The girls all shrugged. I saw that Mike was lingering behind me, looking even more scared. I turned and made my way back at him. Look, the driver has finished carrying out our stuff, he said, pointing. I turned in time to see the driver slamming the luggage compartment door shut. What's happening? Mike cried. Is someone picking us up here? Why did he unload all of our stuff? I'll go find out, I said quietly. I started to jog over to the driver. He was standing in front of the open bus door, mopping his perspiring forehead with the short sleeve of his tan driver's uniform. He saw me coming and quickly climbed into the bus. He slid into the driver's seat, pulling a green sun visor down over his forehead as I stepped up to the door. Is someone coming for us? I called in to him. To my surprise, he pulled the lever, and the bus door slammed shut in my face. Like said, driver is a douchebag. The engine started up with a roar and a burst of gray exhaust fumes. Hey! I screamed and pounded angrily on the glass door. I had to leap back as the bus squealed away, its tires spitting noisily on the hard dirt. Hey! I shouted. You don't have to run me over. I stared angrily as the bus bounced onto the road and roared away. Then I turned back to Mike. He was standing beside the 4 girls. They were all looking upset now. He left, Mike stammered as I approached them. He just left us here in the middle of nowhere. We gazed down the road at the bus until it disappeared over the darkening horizon. We all grew very quiet. A few seconds later, we heard the frightening animal cries. Very close, and getting closer. What's that? Mike stammered. We turned in the direction of the shrill cries. They seemed to be coming from across the platform. At first, I thought that Jay and Colin and their friends were playing a joke on us, making the animal cries to frighten us. But then I saw the scared, wide-eyed expression on their faces. Jay, Colin, and the others had frozen in place. They weren't making the noises. The cries grew louder, closer, shrill warnings. And then, staring into the distance beyond the platform, I saw them, small dark creatures, creeping low, rolling rapidly along the flat ground, tossing their heads back and uttering excited shrieks as they came towards us. What are they? Mike cried, moving closer to me. How am I supposed to know? Are they prairie wolves? Prairie wolves? Dory asked in a trembling voice. I hope not, one of the girls called out. We all climbed onto the concrete platform and we huddled behind our trunks and bags. The animal cries grew louder as the creatures grew near. I could see dozens of them. They scurried toward us over the flat ground as if being blown by the wind. Help! Somebody help us! I heard Mike scream. Next to me, Jay still had two of the red rocks from his rock-throwing competition in his hand. Pick up rocks, he was shouting frantically. Maybe we can scare them away. The creatures stopped a few yards from the concrete platform and raised themselves up menacingly on their hind feet. Huddled between Mike and Jay, I could see them clearly now. They were wolves or wildcats of some sort, standing upright. They were nearly 3 feet tall. They had slender, almost scrawny bodies, covered with spotty red-brown fur. Their paws had long silvery nails growing out of them. Their heads were nearly as slender as their bodies. Tiny red weasel eyes stared hungrily at us. Their long mouths snapped open and shut, revealing double rows of silvery dagger-like teeth. No, no, help! Mike dropped to his knees. His entire body convulsed in a shudder of terror. Some of the kids were crying, others gaped at the advancing creatures in stunned silence. I was too scared to cry out or move or do anything. I stared at the row of creatures, my heart thudding. My mouth was dry as cotton. The creatures grew silent, standing a few feet from the platform. They eyed us, snapping their jaws wildly, loudly, hungrily, white froth beginning to drip from their mouths. They're going to attack, a boy yelled. They look hungry, I heard one of the girls say. The white froth poured thickly over their pointed teeth. They continued to snap their jaws. It sounded like dozens of steel traps being snapped shut. Suddenly, one of them leapt onto the edge of the platform. No! Several kids cried out in unison. We huddled closer together, trying to stay behind the pile of trunks and bags. Another creature climbed onto the platform, then 3 more. I took a step back. I saw Jay pull back his arm and heave a red rock at one of the frothing creatures. The rock hit the platform with a crack and bounced away. The creatures were not frightened. They arched their backs, preparing to attack. They began to make a high-pitched chattering sound and moved nearer. Jay threw another rock. This one hit one of the advancing creatures on the side. It uttered a shrill eek of surprise, but it kept moving steadily forward, its red eyes trained on Jay, its jaws snapping hungrily. Go away, Dory cried in a trembling voice. Go home! Go away! Go away! But her shouts had no effect. The creatures advanced. Run, I urged. Run! We can't outrun them, someone shouted. The shrill chittering grew louder, deafening, until it seemed as if we were surrounded by a wall of sound. The ugly creatures lowered themselves to pounce. Run, I repeated. Come on, run! My legs wouldn't cooperate. They felt rubbery and weak. Trying to back away from the attacking creatures, I toppled over backwards off the platform. I saw flashing stars as the back of my head hit the hard ground. They're going to get me, I realized. I can't get away. Well, after reading 3 chapters, which are really short chapters, I mean, this is just page 16 out of, just 3 chapters took 16 pages. That's about just a few pages each. Would I keep reading this? Sure. I don't really... Yeah, this is probably pretty good for a kid. I'm surprised at the competent writing, of the author. I've never actually read a Goosebump book before. I used to watch the TV show, but, from at least these 3 chapters of this particular book, this seems like it'd be a good story for kids. Especially if they like horror stories and mystery and things like that. If you're familiar with things like Are You Afraid of the Dark and other TV series like that, you'd probably like this. Your kids would probably like this. I think this is something you could enjoy as an adult, reading to your kids, or having your kids, practice reading with this and read to you. So, at least this particular book, I give a thumbs up. I recommend this. If you can find it online or your book or used bookstore or something somewhere. My brother got these for my mother from the flea market. Pick these up. This seems fine. The other books are probably fine, but realize, this is a series of books, so they're all various short stories. Some are going to be better than others. Especially since this is a long-running book series. Probably doesn't keep a strong stride. But I have like a whole bunch of other books to read. So hopefully, I'm sorry, kitty. So hopefully this piqued your interest and you'll give it a read, because I could keep reading it. This is a great way to kill some time. It's not stupid. Could it be written in a more mature way? Yeah, but you have to remember this is written for children. This is meant to be a kid's horror book. So, that's it for R.L. Stine's Goosebumps. Welcome to Camp Nightmare. Thank you for listening. Bye!